Okay, guys, so TFW just dropped the San Diego Comic-Con 2025 Hasbro Transformers team interview. There was a lot to discuss here, so I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's get right down to it, and I'll give you guys my thoughts on everything, as always. So first up here, will Age of the Primes get a sub-name in its second year, or just continue as is? And then Nate says, still just Age of the Primes. And then they ask, is there still interest in making big Transformers games after the Reactivate cancellation? And then Evan says, yes, there is definitely an interest to pursue bigger video games for Transformers in the future. We have no information on that at this time, but obviously we would love to see that happen. And then they ask, are there unreleased Reactivate concepts that could be squeezed into studio series? Evan says, we have talked about digging into those designs just because the designs were so awesome, so there's definitely a possibility that they will sometime, maybe in the future, make their way into studio series. With the reveal of Blastoff, is it a partial of any existing figure or is it all new? Nate says, all new, all the Combaticons are all new, and I can't imagine we'd ever go away from that or for any combiner. Evan says, well, the aerial bots, some of them are partials of each other because they're jets and they're very similar. And then they ask here, it was mentioned before that a secret mode allowing Omega Prime to put all his parts together would be published. There are many fan modes, but is there an official mode, still something that'll be released? Evan says, yeah, and that falls on me. That was just me being too busy to update, and I will definitely get on that. I will say the fans have figured it out. I have seen some photos. I think it was very specifically when the Japanese fans got it, they figured out like in a minute of opening it, so I just need to get that official photo out there. I will do that. Now within the first week, we're back. Within the first week, we're back because we're very busy when we get back. But eventually, yes, I will get that official photo out there. So let's break some of this stuff down here first. A few questions, but a lot to unpack. So the Age of the Prime sub-name, that makes sense that they're not going to do that. I think they're slowly moving away from doing trilogies, so there's that. And video games, there's obviously going to be another Transformers video game, console game at some point. It's just a matter of when and not if at this point. And the concept arts for Reactivate, we basically already have 4 in studio series since the game never came out. Starscream, Optimus, Bumblebee, and Soundwave. So I could definitely see them doing more, especially since there is a pretty big cult following online for these designs at this point, like on Twitter and Instagram and stuff. So I could see that happening. Let's continue with this stuff here. With Brawl being a Voyager, how does he integrate with Bruticus? Evan says, so he has ratchets built in, especially for the ankle articulation, so that's very similar to what we did with Devastator, with Mixmaster and the like, where we had to build in the ratchets and the ankles for support. That's one of the reasons that he is buffed up to a Voyager. He is going to be the foot. That is great. Bringing back ratchets with combiners. Love it. Love to see it. Keep it up, Hasbro. And by the way, I haven't read any of this stuff yet, so I'm basically doing a live reaction with you guys. So let's continue with the Q&A here. What would you like to do with Haslabs in the future? Are there possibilities you would like to explore beyond singular, iconic, large characters? Are collab Haslabs possible? And then Nate says, oh my god, there's a huge answer here. For Haslab, we have our concept for 2026. We know what we're doing. Evan says, in future concepts, I definitely say there's opportunity. Mark wants to go wild and weird as he always does. Then Nate gives a longer answer here. He says, as far as collabs go, so the G.I. Joe ones, they've done very well. I mean, you have the challenge of trying to interest G.I. Joe fans, having those 3 3/4 inch figures with them. So then the challenge for us is that we have to make the bots to scale for the 3 3/4 inch. I think the most recent 2 we've done, at least we're over 100. When it comes to collabs, the strategy behind the collabs is really trying to get all new fans interested in Transformers. So that's why you're seeing Hot Wheels, blah, blah, blah. Be certain that it's gonna fund because the whiffs that occasionally happen. Transformers has been blessed. The Transformers community were 5 for 5. So he's basically saying that, you know, it's on the table. They want to do a bunch of crazy stuff, and we thank the fans. Long answer, but some interesting subliminals there for the future. I feel like we could get some more wacky Haslabs as the years go on. TFW asks here, many collabs have been coming out recently. Can you describe the process in which these are initiated in case there are possible IPs and franchises interested in working with Transformers? Nate says, yeah, I will say that sometimes they come to us, and really the last couple years we've started to really prove that they work. I think one of our best sellers was probably not a surprise, the Ninja Turtles van. Yeah, That actually was a really well done collab. So I mean, I think the quality went into, you know, its selling and people buying it as well. So I mean, the collabs, I don't think they're gonna be leaving the Transformers mainline or, you know, brand for the years to come. Probably for the next 10 years, I'd say. Like, they seem to be doing very well. But that's just me speculating. Then TFW asks, about Titan Grimlock, since we had the leader, is there any kind of engineering you brought over? Evan says, I would say there's maybe a few similar transformation mechanisms in it, but he is completely new sculpt, especially with how that leader class figure, essentially the back skirt became the tail, and obviously that doesn't happen on this one because the tail becomes his mace weapon. We definitely had some learnings from that figure, but this figure has more articulation, better posing, ratcheting joints, things like that. I don't know if it's going to have better posing. It seems like, I don't know, there were some things that were revealed in the last couple of days with that Grimlock mold that don't really make me too happy, but either way, I'm still really excited for that figure. Check out my one of my more recent videos on that Grimlock, some of the things that may be flawed with that guy when he comes out next year. TFW asks, are the jaws fully able to open? Evan says, yeah. I heard that too. I can't remember if I said that in my video that it would open or not, but there was rumblings going around that it wouldn't open, so it's good to see confirmation here. TFW asks, do they shut? The closest that they come to is that the teeth will touch tip to tip because his teeth are always very pointy. There's no like super closed mouth. I mean, that's fair, I guess, but for the price, it would be nice if the mouth kind of closed, but whatever. Nate says, and while we're talking about Titan, I'm trying to tell every single person I see we're actively in development for the second Dinobot at that scale. Again, I'm trying to stop saying Titan scale because Titan scale for a couple years was like $200. That's what it means. It does not mean that anymore. Star Convoy proved that. We launched that at $150. This one, I would love to tell you the price, but things change. Right now, it is not $200. But you can see it's 15.5 inches tall in robot mode, so it all starts with Evan and Mark getting the character right, and then we back that into a price point. I think the Grimlock is probably going to be cheaper than $200, but I don't know if it's going to be cheaper than Star Convoy. We're going to have to wait and see. TFW asks, on Grimlock, does Optimus have a special port or a tab? Evan says there's a 3mm port that pops up and pegs into his back. I thought we already knew this. Didn't they say this in the live stream? Other question here. There's been talk at the convention of Armada Jetfire maybe Overload from the crowd. He's known for dual combination. If something was made, would you want to guarantee that happens? And in that same manner, if Cybertron Optimus was made, would the combination with Leo Breaker and Wing Saber also happen? Evan says, I definitely hear you there. So starting with Jetfire, yes, Optimus needs a new pair of pants, so you will definitely have that functionally because that's so iconic to the character. I definitely think if we do Jetfire in the future, I would expect that combination to happen. So he's basically saying they're going to be doing combined modes at some point soon. I mean, it's Optimus Prime with super modes and combined modes. This is kind of obvious. We've heard rumblings of these figures getting made at some point in the next few years, so not really surprising there. And then it seems like TFW is labeling a separate Evan exclusive interview right here. So they ask here, is Primus more likely to be a Haslab or a Titan if made? Evan says more than likely a Haslab. We've definitely talked about it because recently there's been a lot of requests for him. So I feel like I could see him as like a Haslab in the next couple years if he's not the Haslab for like next year or something. Nothing really too surprising there. TFW asks, what Beast Wars characters do you most want to make? Evan says, oh, that's a very good question. Okay, let me think about that for a moment because we just did Big Convoy. He says Magnaboss and Tripredacus. Wow, okay, so that not really random, I'd say, because they are delving into a lot of characters that weren't in the original American Beast Wars show. So I can definitely see Magnaboss and Tripredacus being like Commander combiners or Titan scale 150 combiners at some point. I've been advocating for those to get made for the longest, and I would definitely buy both because I don't see third-party company doing those for a long time. So TFW asks here, what anime characters do you most want to make? I'm trying to think of who's left on the docket. Bro, what isn't left on the docket? Especially since if we're talking about like animation accuracy, the whole cast is still on the docket. That's funny. But he says here Omega Supreme is the one that everybody asked for. So he's going with that. That would be cool, but I don't think that's like like the main ones with everybody. I mean, obviously people want animated Omega Supreme made, but I don't think he's like the main ask, because that thing is going to be expensive, and not everybody has $200-$400 to spend on an Omega Supreme from animated. If it's a Haslab, it's probably going to be even more. So yeah, I don't know, but I obviously would love to see an Omega Supreme made, and it definitely still would do well. TFWS here, do you think Lugnut Supreme is possible in that case? And then Evan said, he basically said maybe. So I don't know if they would ever get to Lugnut Supreme. I mean, that's kind of obscure. And I don't think a lot of people would want that. But I don't know. We've seen weird things happen in the Generations line the last few years. So I would not be surprised if they did go ahead and make this. And I would be open to it. I think it would be kind of cool. At TFWS here, just to be clear, are Beast Machines or Energon figures things you're still interested in doing? Okay, this is a good question here. Evan says, oh yeah, we definitely talk about that in just one, because we like anniversaries, and Energon doesn't get a lot of love, and it certainly deserves it. Beast Machines doesn't get a lot of love, and it does have its fans, and we know that. Obviously, everybody loves the Veocons, and everybody loves Tankers, so I think at some point in the future, folks can probably expect us to dive more into those universes. Yes, 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 yes. This is a lot better answer than what Mark gave, what was that, like 2 months ago when they did an interview. Now, obviously, Mark was probably just being, comedic or whatever, but yeah, that's not really giving hope to people like me who are fans of these two cartoons that want to see figures made from Hasbro. So this is a good answer. Hopefully, we start getting more figures from these universes made at some point soon. TFW asks, would you want to change the proportions or anything about them, or just leave them as is, because everyone knows that Energon Optimus is a chunky bot? Evan says, yes, Mark actually sometimes calls him Cheeseburger Prime at some point. Yes, he probably would change his proportions slightly, but the priority for him would be his combining gimmick. Wing Saber, they want to do Wing Saber and Omega Supreme too, he's saying. So that's nice. I mean, with the Fans Hobby one, which I do have, that's a great figure. They made it more animation accurate. Like the skin, everybody always points to the figure being so fat and everything. Yes, the figure's fat for the electronics and the engineering or whatever, but in the animation, he was a bit more slimmed out, and that's basically what the Fans Hobby figure represents. So I feel like that's obvious, considering they go for more animation accuracy nowadays with these figures. TFWS here, would you be interested in doing alternate versions of the 13 after AOTP, like recolors? Evan says, yes, I'd imagine so. Probably the next time we would do the 13 would be in Studio Series and doing the TF1 versions that popped up. Otherwise, you'd have to ask Mark on that one. That makes sense. I don't know when they would get to like Transformers 1 versions of the 13 Primes. There's a lot of stuff in Studio Series that they're bringing on board with the comic subline, Studio Series 84, all this crazy stuff that they're mentioning, confirming, speculating on, and saying that they would do at some point. So we're just going to have to wait and see, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did do them. TFWS here, yeah, because a lot of people think about the Covenant Primus, how some of them are different, and also like the AOTB box art with the pure golden versions. Evan says, we have actually joked about that, doing like an all gold, like almost Golden Lagoon collection of them, and he says it's possible. Now, I wouldn't care for this, and I don't know how many people would care for repaints like that, but it is the 13 Primes, they are pretty popular, so I'm sure they would do at least decently. TFWS here, will Bruticus be compatible with the aerial bots and Stunticons? Evan says, so he will use the same frame system, so the way that Menasor is compatible with Superion, Bruticus will be the same. Nothing surprising there. They're using the frame system, so yeah, I feel like it'll be the same. So I do like that aspect. Play factor with Transformers, always great. TFWS here, what about the legs? Because people have noticed that Brawl might have some tooling that makes part of the leg articulation already incorporated. Evan says, true, what Brawl has built in is essentially the shin and the ankle, but the actual thigh parts will still be of the frame of Onslaught. Interesting. So yeah, I did see some people talking about that. I do still like that they're doing the frame. I think that makes for a lot more G1 accurate combined mode, and it looks better proportionally. So I'm excited either way. TFWS here, so with the refresh of the branding on some of the boxes, like going from SS86 to Transformers the Movie, is there anything you feel is more flexible to do with this change? Evan says, yeah, essentially that was because we had only done Starscream before and we had not done Thundercracker and Skywarp and SS86, which felt like a crime. But at some point, we do think we have reached a point where some figures have existed long enough that it's okay to go back and redo them. Also, we no longer number items in Studio Series figures. You mean to tell me the reason why they didn't want to redo Studio Series stuff for a little while was because of the numbering on the box? Who the hell cares about the numbering on the box? That is crazy. But, you know, it makes sense. I'm excited for all the redos to come, especially for the Bayverse stuff that need updates, because a lot of those figures are kind of outdated now. TFWS here, can we expect Nemesis Prime at the 86 mold? Evan says, there have been so many requests for every color version of Optimus in the 86 mold. I think at some point in the future, yes. I mean, it's a given. They're gonna repaint that mold to high heaven at some point. I just know it. And that Skybound version is coming. So yeah, I'm not surprised. JWS here, would a G1-ified slipstream based on the new Secret be possible? Evan says, I don't see why not, basically. So yeah, I am confident that we could see a new slipstream, especially since that Legacy one wasn't really too well received. And I don't really think that was a good figure to begin with, so hopefully we do get more of a Seeker-accurate slipstream that's not a Windblade repaint for the third time. TFWS here, given Cyberverse, given Earthspark, more recent cartoons like that, do you think there's a duration you would need in order for them to be pushed into Studio Series at some point in the future? He says we haven't actually talked about that. The only ones that we ever get asked about making into Studio Series are Prime, and animated too. Do not forget animated, Evan. So, not a surprising answer here. I definitely do feel like at some point Cyberverse is going to get that collector line treatment, Earthspark, all these new cartoons. Unless if Hasbro and Transformers goes under in that time, I definitely see this happening. TFWS here, can you tell us what you think stands out in terms of the new Seeker design versus the Earthrise one? I mean, do I even have to read this, guys? This is a very obvious answer. Just look at the Thundercracker Seeker mold we have. The articulation is better, the look is better, everything about that new mold is better. TFWS here, can you comment at all on the Omega Prime QC situation? And Evan says, it definitely was a learning experience. I guess all I can really say about it is that if you experience any issues, please reach out to Hasbro Consumer Care. I mean, yeah, what is Evan going to say about this? You know, it sucks, but, you know, you had to learn from it and kind of just move on and fix things going forward. But, yeah, that thing was whack. I was super excited for Omega Prime, and I just ended up selling mine because I didn't want to deal with the dozen QC problems with both molds that were absolutely insane to me. So, absolutely dumb. TFWS here. So, the Cyberworld show is obviously aimed at kids, but do you think there are any plans for other shows aimed more at older fans? Evan says, yes, we do talk about that quite frequently. We're hoping that we have something in the works in the future. I mean, isn't that Skybound show rumored and kind of basically confirmed at this point? Like, I don't understand. Maybe TFW is trying to get an answer out of them about the Skybound show, but I feel like it's pretty much confirmed, or at least heavily rumored, that we're getting a Skybound show. Some of the stuff I really do not need to go over, so if I skip something or if I just not really talk about something as in depth, it's because it's not really like that good of a question, or it's something we already know about. So just keep that in mind for this video, guys. I know I'm 20 minutes in saying this, but still, you know. TFWS here, so the Primes themselves are very much known for their artifacts. Are there any plans for possibly more accessory packs like this Centurion Weaponizer pack? Evan says yes. That's all I'm going to say is yes. Look out for that in the future. So nice. He's basically confirming here that we're getting some more multi-packs and, weapons for the Primes and everything. That is really cool. And yes, this is confirmed that this is not just him saying, oh yeah, well, We'll think about it. You know, this seems like he's confirming it here. TFW says here, if 86 RODIMUS gets made, presumably as a Kingdom reuse, is he more likely to be an exclusive so that he doesn't take up one of the yearly Commander slots? Evan says, if we do an 86 RODIMUS, he would be new. That is something that we've kind of been talking about with the Takara Tomy team as well. They would like to do a new one. It's a very different execution, different plans, different priorities as well. So he will be in mainline, and we'll just see where he ends up. So a new Rodimus Prime is in the talks with Takara Tomy. I can't say I'm surprised by this, but I didn't think he would be new. I just thought he would be a repaint or a partial off of the Kingdom mold. So this is actually very big news here, guys. TFWS, is the blue Megatron arm on the back of his packaging something that's noteworthy, or is it just a color error? Evan says, okay, it is nothing. That's all I'm going to say. It was done by our team to just kind of show that any and all different characters can hold the Megatron blaster. Okay, that makes sense. I wasn't really looking into that too deep here on the channel, so nothing, not really bummed out there. TFW asks, since the Shatterglass line, there's been new molds of a lot of those characters. Are you interested in doing updated versions such as 86 Prime, I almost said Plime, in his Shatterglass deco? Evan says, yes, everybody has asked about that Nemesis in a white Ultra Magnus version. I'll just say everybody loves that mold, so we will make sure to get it out there in every color we can get it out in. I'm sure you will, guys. Yeah, I mean, I definitely do feel like Shattered Glass stuff is never gonna end being made in generations. We're definitely gonna get redos of those characters and figures at some point. So TFW asked about doing mobile game stuff in Gamer Edition, and Evan says it's a possibility. I don't know how well that would do if they actually did it, because the mobile games, they got a niche following, but I don't see anybody really asking for, like, what was that recent mobile game? I can't remember, but I don't really see anybody asking for mobile game stuff like that, so I don't know if they would really ever get to that, but who knows. So TFW asks here, do you want to do more of the main Devastation cast for Gamer Edition? Evan says yes, 100%. Nate and I kind of talk about that pretty often, about bringing in more for Devastation, just because we all love that game. So I feel like Devastation is on the table. Like, that is a very popular game. So, and especially since they're basically just repaints of a lot of characters, easy money maker and money saver for Hasbro. So I'd say definitely expect more Devastation stuff in the future. Then we have a separate Nate interview here for a little bit, so I'm going to look through these questions and see if there's anything notable here, because again, some of this stuff is just kind of like fluff questions or stuff that we already know about. I thought this was kind of an interesting question here. TFW asks, if there was something that was only in Japanese continuity that you would love to bring over, what would that be? Nate says, I think Sky Gary is one that comes up a lot. I think that'd be really cool. So Sky Gary, they were talking about Sky Gary in an interview, I think, with MCU Collector a few days ago, so I feel like he's definitely on the minds over at Hasbro and Takara, especially since we just got Star Convoy. So I'd expect a Sky Gary, Grandis, Diatlas, all these like A-list G1 Japanese characters in the next few years, no doubt about it. TFW asks about like a Hearts of Steel Shockwave, and Nate says, yeah, I'd be interested in doing that at some point, but they want to do a new subline, which we've already heard about for 2026, so it's going to be interesting to see what era they take from. And he mentions leaning into doing more different alt modes for characters, like what they used to do in the 90s and the 2000s. So I feel like this might be a new era for Transformers going forward, and we're going to start seeing more original designs from Hasbro, which would be really interesting to see, and kind of breathe some new fresh life into the Transformers brand that's been missing the last like 5-10 years, I'd say, with just doing G1 designs over and over again, but slightly different every time, you know. And then we have some random floor chit chat, TFW calls it. They said they would love to re-release the Activision games, but so far no updates. That's a bummer, because the rumor for the longest time was that these games were getting reissued. It was what, for like a year or two straight I was covering on the channel, and then all of a sudden all that stuff went to crap. It's insane. Evan says he wants to do a 6-shot and a grape shot. Not sure on size class. I would say they could do them at a commander class, or maybe if they really want to fudge it, leader class, but definitely commander would be better. Landcross and Road Caesar sound unlikely to be happening anytime soon. That's kind of a bummer, but me personally, do I really care about these characters? Not really, so I'm not too like sad about this, but it does kind of suck. A reissue of the Centurion drone has come up, as well as an ideation of the accessory pack reissued with a brunt to match AOTP Trypticon. That would be really cool, actually. I could see them doing that, especially with that Trypticon seemingly selling well, so I'd be excited for that. Evan says if they do a Clipper, it would make her a new mold, and she's not in the works necessarily right now. Not too surprising there at all. I mean, they give new molds to some very obscure characters sometimes, so I definitely would expect a Clipper to be a new mold one day. Omnibots. Evan said they're aware it's something the fans want, they're pushing for it, and he wants to make it a Pulse exclusive. That'd be cool, but I don't know how keen people would be to make it a Pulse exclusive, considering sometimes these exclusives are hard to get. But we're going to have to wait and see, I guess. Brainstorming G1 Predaking, they're saying they're trying to figure out how to do the skeletal system, and the idea of transforming it into another beast came up. I don't know how like the G1 purists would feel about that. Them kind of like reimagining G1 Predaking like that with an update. I would be open to it. I think that would be kind of badass, but I don't know. That would be kind of controversial in the community. Mark still trying to figure out how to do a G2 Motormaster and Wild Rider, getting those out. I could see them coming out within the next year or two as like some exclusive. It seems like G2 repaints, they kind of get brushed aside sometimes, so I honestly don't know when these are going to come out. They again confirmed Nexus Prime is going to combine in some way. Nate asked for thoughts on an 86 Unicron. It would be a new mold, and he was asking feedback for what size class. Mark said they want to try prototype color figures in reference to the red Thundercracker on display. These two answers right here are the most interesting so far out of this list, I'd say. So they're basically confirming an 86 Unicron will be done at some point. I'm thinking 2030 for like the 45th, 2031 or something for like the 45th anniversary or the 50th anniversary of the movie. In another 5 to 10 years, I'd say they're going to do a new Unicron. It's inevitable. It's freaking Unicron. They're obviously going to do him in the 86 line at some point, or just in the regular Generations line. So anybody saying, oh, Hasbro's not going to do a Unicron, I mean, really think about that. And especially with what they're saying here, a new mold and asking for feedback on the size class, and them seemingly sounding optimistic about a new Unicron. It's obviously something they're thinking about and want to do at some point. And of course, why wouldn't they do a new Unicron at some point? And the prototype thing is interesting. I don't know. I think, with the customizing community, there's a lot of people out there that would want to get these. So I think Hasbro wants to capitalize off of that. So that would kind of actually be a pretty good business idea for them to tap into. And it would be kind of crazy to see them release prototype colored figures. That would mark a new beginning for Hasbro. So I wouldn't mind seeing that. That would be kind of cool. But yeah, guys, a lot of stuff was talked about. Some of the stuff, is kind of obvious and, kind of fluff questions. But there was some interesting stuff in here that TFW asked, and I'm really grateful that they did ask. So yeah, guys, let me know that down in the comments below. How do you feel about this new TFW Hasbro Team Transformers interview? And yeah, guys, thank you for watching this video. Catch y'all in the next one. See ya!